Time in the reflection realm was not like time in the real world. There was no sunrise, no sunset, just the eternal violet sky shifting like liquid silk above them. Shadows did not follow the rules of light. Sometimes they stretched in the wrong direction. Other times they disappeared altogether. And memories were alive here. They did not stay locked inside one's mind. No, they flickered in the air like echoes of a life once lived. Sometimes Alina would walk past an alley and catch glimpses of people who weren't there. A mother braiding her child's hair, a man laughing as he read a book on his porch. But the moment she turned to look, they were gone. Ravian had warned her, "Don't chase them. They're not real." Then what are they? Pieces of who we used to be, Ravian said quietly. And so, as they searched for a way back, Alina learned the rules of this place. They walked the city endlessly. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes silence was enough. And somewhere along the way, something shifted between them. She noticed it in the way Ravian watched her. Not just with that sharp, calculating gaze, but with something softer, something unspoken. And maybe, just maybe, she looked at him the same way. One evening, if it could even be called that in this timeless place, they sat on the rooftop of an old abandoned library. From up there, the city stretched before them in eerie, violet light. "Do you remember who you were before this?" Alina asked to him. Ravian leaned back on his hands, exhaling slowly. "Pieces, like everyone else." Alina turned to look at him. "Tell me." He hesitated. Then, finally, "I was a scholar. I think I loved history. The past always fascinated me." A small, sad smile touched his lips. "Funny, isn't it? I spent my life chasing history. Now I've become part of one." Alina's chest tightened. She turned her gaze back to the city. "I was an artist," Alina said about herself. Ravian glanced at her. "I wanted to create something that would outlive me. Something meaningful," she said softly. For a moment, there was silence. Then, "You still can," he said. She met his eyes, and for the first time, she saw it, the quiet belief in his gaze. Not in this world, not in fate, but in her. Her breath caught, and then the air around them shifted. A memory flickered between them, not hers, not his, but theirs. A dimly lit room, the scent of old books, two figures standing close, hands barely touching. Alina's heart pounded. She turned to Ravian. "Did you see that?" Alina whispered. Ravian nodded, his grey eyes darker than ever. Their past lives, their souls. Had they known each other before? Neither of them spoke. The moment stretched between them, heavy, electric. And then he reached for her, slowly, hesitantly, as if afraid she would vanish. She didn't. His fingers brushed her cheek, tracing the curve of her jaw. Software. Reverent. "I think I've been searching for you longer than I realized," Ravian said quietly. Alina's breath trembled. "Then stop searching." And in the stillness of the forgotten world, beneath the violet sky, they kissed. It was not desperate. It was not rushed. It was a promise that even in a world where time twisted and memories faded, some things were meant to find their way back. This is where the story turns to sacrifice, love, and the breaking of a curse that has lasted centuries. They had searched every shadowed street, every forgotten corridor of this strange, reflective world. And in the end, the answer was cruelly simple. Only one could leave. Alina felt her breath catch as Ravian stood before the mirror, his expression unreadable. Alina shaking her head. "No, There has to be another way. There isn't, Ravian said, softly as he accepted the truth. The mirror pulsed, humming with ancient energy. It was waiting for one of them to choose. Alina clenched her fists. Then we don't choose. We both stay. Ravian sighed, stepping closer, his gaze steady. Alina, you still have a life to return to. And you don't? That's not fair. Life isn't fair, but you still have time. Her throat tightened, but before either of them could take another breath, the air crackled, the mirror darkened, the smooth glass rippling like water. And then she stepped through. A woman, cloaked in shadows, eyes like molten gold, the sorceress. She did not speak at first. She only watched them, her lips twisting into something between amusement and disdain. And then, Sorceress said coldly, "You should not have found each other." Her voice was smooth, but beneath it was something sharp, something furious. Alina felt Ravian tense beside her. Ravian said, "You did this. You created this prison." The sorceress tilted her head. "Not a prison, a graveyard." She smiled, slow and cruel. Alina felt a chill race through her bones. Why? The sorceress stepped closer, the very air bending around her presence, because love is the greatest curse of all. Her golden eyes flickered to Ravian, her smile fading. She raised her hand. The mirror trembled, cracks splintering across its surface. Alina's heart pounded. If the mirror shattered, they would be trapped forever. No. She would not let this be their fate. This is where the battle began. Ravian moved first, his hands lifting as if commanding the very air itself. Magic, dark and ancient, sparked from his fingertips. The remnants of the sorceress's own power turned against her. Alina was not a warrior. She had no spells, no weapons, but she was an artist. And in this world built on reflections and emotions, her art was her power. She reached for the mirror, pressing her fingertips against its cold surface. Alina whispering, "It's made of pain." The sorceress snarled, flinging a wave of magic toward them, but Ravian blocked it, his own power clashing against hers in a brilliant storm of light. Alina pressed harder against the glass. She could feel it. This curse was not just magic. It was sorrow, betrayal, a wound that had never healed. She closed her eyes, and she imagined something new. Her fingers moved, golden light trailing in their wake. She painted over the pain, not with colors, not with a brush, but with forgiveness. The mirror pulsed, its cracks spreading, but this time, they did not break. They mended. The sorceress screamed, her form flickering. Sorceress furious, desperate. "You cannot change what was done. I can change what comes next," Alina whispered, and with one final stroke of golden light, the curse shattered. The sorceress let out a final, echoing scream, and then she was dust. The mirror glowed, its surface now smooth, golden light spilling from its edges. All around them, whispers rose. Other souls, trapped for centuries, fading into the light, returning home. Alina turned to Ravian, breathless, tears in her eyes. "We did it," Alina said happily, and turned to Ravian, but her heart stopped. He was fading. His form was dissolving like mist in the morning sun. No, this isn't happening." Alina panicked. "We broke the curse. You should be free." She reached for him. Ravian smiled softly, a sad, knowing smile. "Alina, I was never trapped the way you were." She shook her head, refusing to understand, refusing to accept. "What are you saying?" The mirror, it's opening, we can go home. His gaze, those storm grey eyes she had come to know so well, held an unbearable sorrow. Helena, I have no home to return to. And in that moment, the truth struck her, like ice in her veins, like a blade to her soul. His body, the real Ravian, had died long ago. He had never been a prisoner of the mirror. He was a ghost of this world, bound by unfinished fate. She staggered back, shaking her head. No, I won't leave you. She started crying. Ravian stepped forward, cupping her face with hands that were already fading. You have to. I can't. Her voice cracked. I love you, Ravian. A breath, a pause, and then a ghost of a smile. And I love you in every time, in every world. Ravian said softly. A tear slipped down her cheek. He brushed it away, or maybe the wind did. And then he leaned in, pressing his lips to hers in a kiss that tasted of goodbye. A kiss that felt like the turning of a page. As he pulled away, his lips ghosted against her ear, whispering, "Live for both of us." And then he was gone. The mirror behind her flared, blinding white. A force pulled at her, dragging her backward, out of the world of reflections, out of the realm where time was lost. She screamed his name, reaching for him. But there was nothing left to hold. Nothing left but memory. Helena woke with a gasp, her lungs burning as if she had been drowning. Her fingers clenched at the sheets, her pulse thundering in her ears. She sat up abruptly, eyes darting across the dimly lit room. Her apartment, the worn-out wooden floor, the scent of old books, the soft flicker of candlelight. She was home, but something was wrong. The mirror was gone, not shattered, not broken, just gone. And in its place, leaning against the wall, was a blank canvas. She stared at it. Her chest felt hollow, an aching emptiness where his presence had been. Ravian. The name trembled through her like a ghost of a song she had once known. She reached out, fingertips brushing the empty canvas. You're really gone, aren't you? Helena whispered. Silence. Only the soft hum of the city beyond her window, the distant murmur of life moving forward. She swallowed the lump in her throat. She would not let this end as just another forgotten dream. She would not let him be forgotten. That night, she picked up her brush. Stroke by stroke, she brought him to life once more. His storm grey eyes filled with quiet sorrow. The curve of his lips, caught forever between a smirk and a secret. The way the light seemed to belong to him, wrapping around him like an embrace. She poured everything into that painting. Every stolen moment, every unspoken word, every piece of her heart that still ached for him. And when it was done, she stood back, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. For both of us, she said softly. Weeks passed. The world outside did not stop for lost love, but neither did she. She worked, she created. She turned pain into art, loss into color, memory into meaning. And then one evening, she stood in the middle of a grand hall, surrounded by people who whispered in awe at the paintings that hung around them. Her first solo exhibition, the title, Reflections of a Forgotten Love. And in the center of it all, his portrait. People gazed at it, drawn in by something they couldn't explain. Some said his eyes seemed alive. Some said they could feel the emotion behind the strokes. But only Alina knew the truth. She had painted him not as a memory, but as a promise. That he would never be lost, that in every world, in every lifetime, his story would be told. And as she stood there, beneath the soft golden lights, A breeze brushed past her, rustling the edges of her dress. A whisper. A presence, like the ghost of a touch against her skin. And though no one else heard it, Alina did. A voice, gentle, familiar. "I'm still here." She closed her eyes, smiled softly,